Why would a millionaire stop his luxury car in the pouring rain, just to hug an old woman holding a paper bag? Because 15 years ago, she fed him when the world turned its back. This isn't just a story about rags to riches, it's about a forgotten boy, a woman with nothing but love to give, and a bond that turned hunger into hope, and a street corner into a second chance at life. She didn't ask for anything. No money. No favors. Just one promise. Don't forget me. And when he returned, he didn't just remember her, he changed her life forever. This will break your heart, and then stitch it back together. Watch the full story now, and if it touched you even a little, don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Billions for more powerful, true life stories that remind us what really matters. Miss Emily, why you give me food every day? The question came softly, almost hesitantly, from the little boy sitting on the cold pavement. His hair was a nest of soft curls, his cheeks sunken, his hands trembling as he held the bowl of warm oatmeal Emily had just handed him. It was early morning, and the alley was quiet, save for the distant hum of a passing bus and the wind sweeping through the narrow path. Emily knelt beside him, her old jeans brushing the concrete, and looked into his eyes, those wide, innocent eyes that carried a lifetime of pain too heavy for such a small body. Because nobody should go to bed hungry, she whispered, gently brushing a crumb off his lip. And because you matter. Even if the world forgot you, I didn't. He looked down at the bowl, then back at her, confused. Even if I got no home? Yes, even then. Especially then. The child didn't say anything after that. He just scooped another spoonful into his mouth and chewed slowly, as if trying to make the moment last forever. Emily sat with him in silence, watching him eat, her heart breaking and healing all at once. She didn't know his name, not yet. He had never told her. But that didn't stop her from showing up every day. It had started 3 weeks ago. She had noticed the boy curled up behind the dumpster outside her apartment building. At first, he didn't speak. He didn't ask for help. He just stared blankly at the ground. But Emily had seen that look before, hopelessness. The kind her own eyes carried when she had buried her husband and then her dreams. So, she brought food the next morning. And the next. And the next. She worked at a small local diner, pulling extra shifts just to pay the rent and keep up with the medications for her bedridden mother. Her body ached most days, and there were nights she cried herself to sleep out of sheer exhaustion. But every morning she'd wake up early, prepare a small meal, and look forward to seeing the boy's face light up. "Do you have a name?" she asked gently one day, as he finished his meal. He paused, unsure. "I don't remember. But you can call me anything." Emily smiled. "Then I'll call you Malik. It means king. Because that's what you are. Strong, brave, and meant for more." He grinned shyly, and for the first time, she saw life in his eyes. That day, as the sun climbed the sky and painted the alley with a soft golden glow, Emily felt something stir in her heart. She didn't have much, not money, not comfort, not security. But she had enough love to give. And for this child, that love became the only roof he had. She held his hand and whispered, "You're not alone anymore, Malik. I'm here. I always will be." And she meant it with every beat of her heart. The sky wept almost every other day that winter. Cold, heavy drops soaked the city, blurring the lines between street lamps and shadows. Emily stood by the sidewalk, her tattered umbrella barely holding back the rain. Her coat was thin, patched in places, and her boots squeaked with every step. But her eyes, tired yet filled with determination, scanned the street. "Come on, Malik, please be safe," she whispered under her breath. On the other side of the road, luxury cars lined the curb, sleek, silver-bodied vehicles that glimmered even under gloomy skies. They roared by without pause, splashing water across the pavement. Inside them sat people in tailored suits, warm leather seats cradling their lives of comfort. None of them noticed the boy walking alone with a backpack too heavy for his small frame. But Emily did. "There you are," she called out, waving. Malik rushed into her arms, drenched and shivering. His school uniform clung to his tiny body, and the edges of his notebook peeked from his soaked backpack. "Miss Emily," he said, breathing heavily. "They laughed at me again." Emily knelt down, pushing his hair away from his face. "Because you wore shoes with tape?" He nodded. His voice trembled. "They said I don't belong there." She pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him. "Let them say what they want. They don't know where you come from. They don't know how hard you fight every day." Malik looked up at the expensive cars with longing. "Why can't we ride in one of those, Miss Emily?" Emily chuckled softly, wiping rain from his cheeks. "Because, sweetheart, our hearts are the real Rolls-Royce. And they run on love, not gas." He laughed for a moment, forgetting the pain of the day. Emily handed him a thermos filled with hot soup and a wrapped sandwich. He lit up, even though she herself hadn't eaten since the morning shift. The reality was cruel. Emily's hours had been slashed at the diner due to low sales. Rent had climbed again, and with her mother gone, the loneliness weighed heavier than ever. Some nights she gave Malik her only dinner, lying and saying, "I ate earlier." Still, she showed up every single day, rain or shine. She walked him to school, waited at the corner, stood through storms, all so this boy, abandoned by the world, would never feel alone again. At night, when Malik had fallen asleep on the mattress she placed in the tiny kitchen corner, Emily would light a candle and close her eyes. "Please, God," she whispered, hands clasped tight. "Let him make it. Let him have the life I never could. Give him wings, and I'll give everything else." And though her knees ached and her stomach growled, she believed her prayers were not falling on deaf ears. Because sometimes, love and a silent prayer were enough to shift the course of an entire life. The small apartment smelled of warm bread and fabric softener. Rain tapped gently on the windowpane like a familiar visitor. Emily stirred a pot on the stove, humming quietly, though her voice quivered with a strange heaviness. It had been 12 years since she first met Malik, 12 winters, 12 birthdays celebrated with homemade cupcakes and mismatched candles. He was 16 now. Taller than her, his voice deeper, eyes sharper. But inside, he was still her boy, the child who once clung to her side like a shadow, who once asked why the stars never fell down. That evening, he stood in the doorway, holding a letter with trembling hands. His backpack sat packed beside him. "Emily," he said, his voice low. "I got accepted." She turned slowly, her wooden spoon pausing midair. "Accepted?" He handed her the letter. It was from a state-run residential mentorship program for disadvantaged youth. It promised education, shelter, and a future. Everything she had silently begged the heavens to give him. "They'll help me finish school. Teach me business, coding, stuff like that," he said, eyes shining. "It's out of state. I leave tomorrow." Emily stared at the words, then at the boy, no, the young man, before her. Her chest felt tight. She wanted to rejoice, but her throat caught. That's incredible, baby," she finally managed, putting on a brave smile. He stepped closer. "I don't want to leave you behind." She reached out, cupping his face. "Don't you dare think about me. This is your moment, Malik. I told you, this world owes you everything you've been denied. Go take it." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I wouldn't even know how to spell my name if it weren't for you. You gave me food, clothes, stories at night. You were my whole world." Emily pulled him into the tightest hug she had ever given. Her heart was both bursting with pride and quietly breaking. "I didn't do much," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I just gave you what someone should have. I just loved you." They sat on the floor together for hours that night, talking about his dreams, her worries, and all the funny memories they shared, like the time he tried to bake her a birthday cake and used salt instead of sugar. At dawn, she walked him to the bus stop. The streets were empty, the world still sleeping. "No matter where you go," she said, brushing his collar, "you'll always have a home in my heart." He looked back one last time as the bus door closed. "I'll come back for you," he said with tears in his eyes. "I promise." Emily smiled, waving, her heart whispering, "Even if you don't, I'll still wait." And as the bus disappeared into the gray morning fog, she stood alone on the curb, her coat billowing in the wind, clutching the silence that replaced the only sun she ever had. She didn't know when, or if, he'd return. But she had hope. And that had always been enough. It had been 7 years. 7 years of quiet birthdays. 7 years of praying over an empty chair. 7 years of walking past the same bus stop every morning, wondering if a familiar voice might call out from behind. Emily was older now. Her hair was graying around the edges, her steps slower. She still lived in the same modest apartment and worked part-time at a small community center. Her days were filled with helping others, but her heart still longed for the one soul who had once called her Mom with the weight of love no blood could offer. That morning, it rained again. Soft and steady. She walked the streets with a paper bag of donated sandwiches in her arms, heading toward the shelter 2 blocks down. The City Cafe Lounge had just opened its doors after a major renovation. She had heard it now catered to millionaires and city investors, not folks like her. As she passed by, a man stepped out in a tailored black suit. Broad-shouldered, polished, and composed. But when he turned, Emily's bag slipped from her hands. The eyes. She knew those eyes. "Emily," he said, stunned. She stared, frozen. "Malik?" He smiled, wide and unmistakable. Before she could speak, he rushed toward her, wrapping her in the kind of embrace that carries years of lost time. She held on to him, her hands trembling against his back, unable to find her voice. You're so different," she finally whispered, stepping back to take him in. "You look powerful." Malik chuckled through watery eyes. "You look the same. Strong. Gentle. Still the woman who saved my life." Behind them, men in suits waited. A car idled. Photographers hovered across the street. "I followed everything," he said quickly. "The community work, the food drives, the shelter donations. I didn't want to reach out until I had something to show for what you gave me." "I never needed anything back," she said softly. "I just wanted you to be okay." Malik looked down, swallowing hard. "I'm more than okay. I built a company. We create digital systems for public schools, helping kids like me. I've been speaking at conferences, working with city leaders." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You really did it." "You did it," he replied. "I just followed your steps." He took her hand and turned to his team. "Cancel the rest of the morning. There's only one meeting I care about today." People turned. Some recognized him. Some whispered. But to Malik, only Emily mattered. "Come with me," he said gently. "I want the world to meet the woman who gave me everything. I want to take you home." Emily shook her head in disbelief, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I don't have fancy clothes. I don't belong in those places." Malik smiled. "You belong wherever I go, Mom." For the first time in years, her heart felt full again, not from a promise of riches, but from the return of something she once gave away freely, love, unconditional and unforgettable. The car rolled to a gentle stop in front of a gated estate. Emily leaned forward, her hand resting lightly on the window glass. The driveway was lined with tall trees, their leaves shimmering like emeralds in the afternoon sun. Beyond them stood a house, no, a palace. White stone, high archways, glass walls reflecting the sky. She'd only ever seen homes like this in magazines left behind in diner booths. This can't be for me, she whispered, her voice barely above the sound of her heartbeat. Malik smiled from the driver's seat beside her. It's not just for you. It's because of you. A valet opened her door as she stepped out slowly. Her modest shoes touched the polished gravel, and the scent of fresh roses wrapped around her. The garden was alive with color, and birds chirped as if rehearsed for her arrival. Why would you, Malik? I don't need all this, she said, her hands still gripping the door for balance. He stepped in front of her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. All my life, I waited to give you this moment. You gave me a future. You gave me you. You never asked for anything back, not even once. He led her through the gates, stopping near a polished wooden sign on a marble base. The golden nameplate read, Emily's Grace, a home built on love. She gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Her knees nearly gave in. I had the architects put your name at the entrance, Malik said, his voice shaking with emotion. Because this house exists because you believed I was worth saving. As they entered the house, sunlight spilled through the ceiling-high windows, bouncing off art and family photos, pictures of her and Malik from the early days. One showed her giving him a bowl of oatmeal. Another captured him hugging her on the steps of the shelter. She hadn't even known he kept them. In the living room, a plush couch faced a fireplace already lit with a soft, crackling glow. A portrait above the mantel showed a young Malik standing proudly beside Emily, mid-laugh. Painted in oil, preserved forever. You remembered everything, she whispered, turning to him with tears brimming. I never forgot a second, he said, hugging her tightly. I've traveled the world. Sat in rooms with powerful people. But no one ever made me feel more powerful than you did when you handed me soup on a rainy night. Emily exhaled shakily, a smile curving her lips. For the first time in decades, she felt peace, not the peace that comes from silence, but from being seen, honored, and loved. Later that evening, as she sat on the balcony sipping warm tea, she watched Malik in the garden below, instructing landscapers to plant more jasmine, the flower she loved most. She looked up at the stars and whispered, he came back. And he really meant it. Her eyes welled again, not from pain, but from joy. She had given love with empty pockets, and now, her heart was rich beyond measure.